We have a very long speakers list, and the following speakers will be given 2 minutes to make their interventions. I have distinguished ministers from Australia, Angola, Azerbaijan, Bosnia and Herzegovina in that order. Minister Taylor, the floor is yours.
Selwin, and thank you to Japan and Minister Koizumi for your leadership in convening this important meeting. Australia is taking an approach to reducing emissions which is focused on technology, not taxation. Our goal is to accelerate the development of new and emerging technologies to parity with more emissions-intensive alternatives. So if we can get low or zero emissions technologies to a point where they're at cost parity with their existing higher emitting alternatives, we know households and businesses will rapidly adopt them. We've already seen that with solar in particular and wind energy here in Australia. Now, in a post-pandemic world, a technology-led approach that doesn't compromise our economy or energy affordability is more important than ever. We're developing a strategic framework to prioritise Australia's government investments, and that's focused on our technology investment roadmap, which is a clear plan to attract new private investment, strengthen our economy and create jobs. We're setting ambitious but realistic stretch goals for the most important technologies in the roadmap. Our first such goal is H2 under 2, or hydrogen production under 2 Australian dollars per kilogram. That's the point at which hydrogen becomes competitive as an energy source for industry, power, heat generation, and of course transport. Now, Australia is a trusted energy supplier to many countries on this call today, and we continue to plan to be. If we're to realise our hydrogen ambition and other similar ambitions in the decades to come, we'll be well placed to continue supplying our partners with clean, cheap energy. We're already committed to more than $500 million of investment in hydrogen, and in a recent funding round, we attracted interest from more than $3 billion worth of projects. We're working closely with our international partners, particularly in the Indo-Pacific region, on technology solutions that will deliver good economic and emissions outcomes. Thank you again for convening this important event.
Thank you so much, Minister. I now give the floor to Minister Costa from Angola, followed by the ministers from Azerbaijan, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Burkina Faso. Minister Costa, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, honorable ministers and excellencies. It is for me a pleasure and privilege to participate in this ministerial meeting to launch the online platform on sustainable and resilient recovery from COVID-19, and thank the government of Japan for this great initiative. This pandemic sneaked upon every society in our planet as a transcendent warning to our ways. While its precise causes remain under investigation, it is evident that our unsustainable patterns of production and consumption are intrinsically related to this event. It should thus serve as an urgent reminder of the need to embed greater environmental sustainability safeguards into our policies and practices. To this end, the online platform being launched today is a welcome tool to share experiences and approaches that ultimately serves the purpose of contributing to greater alignment and coherence in our individual policies. In this regard, I would like to take the opportunity to congratulate again the government of Japan in this formidable initiative. The rapid spread of this pandemic led to most nations to heed the scientific advice and not only treatment protocols, but also on the construct of our societies. As we grapple with the imperative of rebuilding our economies and stimulating our societies, climate change is a phenomenon that, like the current pandemic, threatens our societies and economies. The Republic of Angola considers climate change one of the greatest challenges facing humanity. We internalize this conviction not only due to the information science provides us, not just through the Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change, but also as a result of findings at the national level. As a result, we are conducting a number of policy initiatives that seek to integrate climate action into national development planning. I'm pleased to announce that within the last 2 months, our National Assembly has ratified both the Doha Amendment to the Kyoto Protocol as well as the Paris Agreement. Shortly, we will be approving long-term climate policy instrument whose vision is as an Angolan adapted to the effects of climate change and with low carbon development as a contribute to poverty eradication. These include, for example, our long-term national strategy on climate change that will guide climate action in Angola, including the prospect and preparation of our national determined contribution. We will be submitting a more elaborate information so we don't take much more time. Thank you again for the attention.
Thank you so much, Minister, and apologies. So I now give the floor to the Minister of Ecology and Natural Resources of Azerbaijan.
Distinguished colleagues, I'm happy to see you are staying safe and healthy through these unusual and challenging times. I warmly remember our last meeting with Minister Koizumi in Japan, where we discussed a broad range of the environmental issues, including climate change. I also recall our meeting with Ms. Espinosa in the framework of climate summits in Abu Dhabi and Madrid. We highly value the initiative platform for Resign 2020, led by the Ministry of Environment of Japan in cooperation with UN Climate Change Convention. This pandemic is a huge health and economic crisis for the world is facing now. To ensure economic stability in Azerbaijan, socio-economic support package in the amount of $2 billion American dollars has been adopted. As a responsible and reliable member of the world community, Azerbaijan has provided voluntary financial contribution to the World Health Organization and humanitarian assistance to more than 30 countries in the support of the global efforts against the pandemic. During the summit level meeting of the non-aligned movement contact group is response to coronavirus held by 4th May of 2020, the President of Azerbaijan proposed to hold a special session of the UN General Assembly in response of COVID-19 via video conference. The above-mentioned proposal has been supported by more than 130 member states. The UN General Assembly special session will gather the environmental community to identify global action to this threat. With a population of 10 million people, Azerbaijan contributes only 0.1% of total global greenhouse gases emissions. However, the heavy industrial legacy from the Soviet period, water shortage and desertification make our country highly sensitive to the effects of climate change. Azerbaijan is a country that ratified up to 20 international environmental conventions, more than any other countries in the region, and actively participates in various environmental initiatives. Our country has submitted an ambitious commitment in its NDC targeting 35% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. Unfortunately, the regional cooperation is constrained by occupation of 20% of our country by Armenia for more than 30 years. This fact creates serious obstacles for Azerbaijan to fulfill its obligations under environmental agreements. Despite mentioned, Azerbaijan implements large-scale projects to mitigate the impact of climate change. During the last year, millions of trees have been planted and thousands of hectares of forest areas restored. We will also join the initiative of the Turkey Republic on planting 11 million trees this November. These activities will significantly help to absorb CO2 emissions from the atmosphere and compensate impacts of to the environment. Dear colleagues, reducing the impact of global climate change, sustainable and resilient recovery from current situation requires solidarity and cooperation of the world community. In this difficult time for all of us, I wish you strong health and success in your efforts to make the world a safer place. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Minister. I now give the floor to the Minister of Physical Planning, Civil Engineering and Ecology of Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Your Excellencies, good afternoon from Bosnia and Herzegovina. In the past several years, Bosnia and Herzegovina has paid special attention to improvement of energy efficiency in public buildings and reduction of harmful gas emissions, which has been supported by investments of tens of millions of euros in this area. In the context of the coronavirus pandemic in 2020, we intensified the implementation of several projects financed by international organizations, including World Bank, IFW, Green Climate Fund, EBRD, etc. Main goal is to increase capacity of healthcare for patients, improvement of energy efficiency in public buildings, and indirectly make impact on keeping economic activities momentum, which will help local companies to maintain reasonable business levels and current number of jobs. In addition, virus corona pandemic due to mass use of protection equipment could cause increase in medicinal and infectious waste, which required fast and efficient reaction of responsible institutions. With this in mind, the implementation of project for management of medicinal infectious waste during the coronavirus pandemic in healthcare institutions and hospitals in Bosnia and Herzegovina was financed. Impact of the coronavirus on sustainable development of protected areas and survival of their tourism capacities required local actions, and the population was animated by providing them tourist vouchers to encourage to spend vacation in local destinations, which contributed to promotion of natural resources in affected areas. In order to mitigate adverse impacts of the coronavirus, a number of measures to assist agriculture production has been done to help farmers with seedings and to be able to plant as much as possible in rural areas and encourage production increase. In addition to regular budget subsidies and subsidized fuel, some of the important measures was distribution of support packages free of charge, which included fertilizer, seeds, and seedlings of basic vegetables for small farms and starting production at small agricultural plots, and purchase of cattle and guaranteed purchase, processing, and export of fruits and vegetables. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister. I now give the floor to the distinguished Minister of Environment of Burkina Faso, followed by Colombia, Costa Rica, Cyprus, and Egypt. I think our colleagues might be having challenges connecting. I will now give the floor to the distinguished Minister of Environment of Colombia. Minister Picon?
Hello?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, thank you very much from the government of Japan. Thank you very much for this initiative. The COVID-19 pandemic has more clearly than ever before our own health depends on the health of our ecosystem, and the world is still facing the most urgent crisis of our time, the climate crisis. In this sense, the new economic scenario must not be seen as a limitation for the climate actions. The health, social, and economic crisis present us with opportunities to rebuild better, to consider the roles of the economic incentive aimed the reduction emission and technological changes in the economic recovery. We are focusing on two main areas of the recovery and reporting of the economic within the framework of the strategy, Commitment of the Future of Colombia 2022. First of all, promoting energy transition projects through the 27 strategic renewable energy and transmission projects are being implemented in our country. Colombia aims to become a regional leader in energy transition. Secondly, planting 180 million trees with the incentive for silvopastoral production and agroforestry schemes with a community contribution. For the second consecutively, deforestation rate have decreased in our country, particularly in the Amazon region. However, rather than prioritizing a single sector, we intend to focus on the particularities of each territory to tackle their main sources of greenhouse gas emissions with due consideration of sectoral realities with diversity. The managing of the mass public transportation will be critical in cities to contain the virus. It is important to take advantage of this scenario non-motorized transport alternatives such as virtual working using innovative technologies. We are now currently adapting our NDC, and it includes how the microeconomy variables have been affected by the COVID-19. Therefore, we will adapt the action of the previous NDC to this new scenario. Excellencies will recognize that once again, we are learning by doing, and that we have no other option than to do it correctly and in this time to avert a more dangerous planetary crisis. We welcome this initiative from the government that has all the potential to help the world to move together in the right direction.
Thank you so much, Minister. Colleagues, we have less than an hour left, and we have 29 speakers that we really want to hear from all of you. So please, if you can stick within the 2-minute limit, that would allow us to hear all of the really great interventions. Distinguished Minister of Costa Rica, followed by Cyprus, Egypt, Finland, and the Gambia.
Thank you, Selwin, and thank you, Minister Kusumi, for launching this platform for Redesign 2020. And to redesign our economies and social systems, we need to spend and invest wisely and align to the Paris Agreement goals. And we need to spend and invest in a coherent manner to protect nature. What are we doing in Costa Rica, specific actions that we're doing right now? Some of them are to use our decarbonization plan as a building block to prioritize investments in our recovery plan. We're investing in the electric train and sustainable mobility to connect our cities, in precision agriculture, and we're also using our social protection system to encourage local actions to protect forests and wetlands. But now more than ever, we need multilateralism and solidarity. And for this reason, Costa Rica, as member of the High Ambition Coalition, supports the 6 actions for green recovery, and we are committed to taking these principles forward. But we also do this call for solidarity. We need to support debt relief mechanisms, such as debt for nature swaps and concessional finances. We need also coherence in these cooperation packages and international investments. We are very happy to be part of this platform, and we know that it is a great initiative to continue the momentum of this green recovery momentum. Thank you, Selwin.
Thank you so much, Minister. I know that this is your first international meeting, and welcome to the climate bubble. I now give the floor to the distinguished Minister of Cyprus, followed by Egypt, Finland, and the Gambia. Minister.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank the Japanese Minister of Environment and the Executive Secretary of the UNFCCC for giving me the opportunity to discuss with you this very important issue, how to implement measures to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. This year was indeed a very challenging one for all of us, affecting the health of our citizens, but also the financial stability of our economies. On the way to recovery, we need to take this opportunity and implement green policies to ensure a sustainable future. Economic growth must be based on a green recovery, which is the only way to safeguard the health of our environment and our communities. If we relaunch the economy with the business as usual model in mind, we risk facing global crises regarding climate, biodiversity loss, and possibly a new health crisis. It is our duty to strive towards climate neutrality and healthy ecosystems. Cyprus has taken concrete measures to ensure the safety and well-being of its citizens and to support the business and agricultural sectors. At the same time, the digitalization of communication between the public and private sectors was promoted with very good results. This will be further promoted so as activities will become digitally available at a permanent basis. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought undoubtedly many changes to our everyday lives. Unfortunately, one of the many negative impacts has been the increased amount of waste produced per person. We have put much effort in educational campaigns for dealing with waste, especially recycling, and decreasing the waste scattered in the countryside. Concluding, we strongly believe that dealing with the outcome of this pandemic is the beginning of a new era of green development. With the appropriate financial tools and the political will, we can redirect this crisis to an opportunity of real change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister. I now give the floor to the distinguished Minister of Environment of Egypt.
Thank you very much. It is a pleasure to participate in this online platform ministerial meeting. The three transitions towards decarbonization, circular economy, and decentralization will be the cornerstone of our recovery from COVID-19. In order to foster that, we have to link together the climate policies as well as the financial and environmental protection policies. COVID-19 has demonstrated that we need not only to work together and make the needed transformation paradigm shift, but also not to think in isolation from one another. A coherent approach for tackling climate change, land degradation, and protecting the biodiversity is a prerequisite. It's a prerequisite in order to ensure the sustainability of lifestyle and the resources. Egypt has decided to include some important measures after COVID-19 or during COVID-19 crisis. First of all, we are including the sustainability dimensions and green criteria in all our investment projects. 30% of our investment plan right now includes sustainability measures. Secondly, announcing the green bonds and what kind of projects and development challenges that we would like to overcome, giving special attention to resilient infrastructure and clean transportation. Also, one important part is that we see that we need to stress more with the climate change on the means of implementation, especially finance. And the commitments that came out from Paris Agreement from developed country to the developing countries. And how can we package that once more with a more resilient society of green recovery? I would like to thank you for inviting me to that important event and wish you all the best of luck.
Thank you so much, Minister, and thank you for Egypt's leadership. I now give the floor to the distinguished Minister of Environment and Climate Change of Finland. Minister.
Excellencies, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I wish to start by thanking Minister Koitumi for convening this topical meeting. I trust this platform will become an important venue for sharing experiences and key learning on how to build back better and greener after the COVID-19 crisis. The COVID-19 pandemic has already had significant economic and social implications on our society. We are still in the middle of the storm. However, we must not lose sight of the persisting climate and ecological crises. Our responses to these challenges can and must be combined. A green recovery from the COVID-19 is a unique opportunity, perhaps even the last opportunity we will get to bring our economies within the planetary boundaries. Whether it's a question of €1 or 1 billion, it can only be used once. And we must make sure we use public resources wisely, solving together as many crises as we can. My government committed already in May to designing our economic recovery measures in line with our 2035 climate neutrality and circular economy goals. At the same time, we are working according to schedule on the plans and programs and legal instruments necessary to ensure Finland will be able to achieve the target of the climate neutrality by 2035 by domestic means. We are all committed to updating our NDCs this year. This is also on the EU's agenda this autumn. Finland is strongly committed to increasing the EU's NDC in line with the Paris Agreement. Dear friends, the multiple crises we face are global and we can only solve them together. As my colleague from Rwanda said, none of us are resilient before all of us are resilient. So let's act now with determination, coherence and solidarity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. I now give the floor to the distinguished Minister of the Environment of Gambia, followed by Gabon, Jordan, and Lao. Minister of the Gambia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Distinguished Executive Secretary. Hello, are you getting me?
We can hear you, Minister. Please proceed.
Hello, are you getting me?
Yes, we are, Minister. Please
Hello.
Go ahead. Minister, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Hello?
Minister, we can hear you. Please proceed,
Yes,
Minister.
Honorable Minister of Environment of Japan. Thank you. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is my singular honor and gratitude to join the ministerial meeting to unveil the online platform on sustainable resilient recovery from COVID-19. As you all know, the Gambia is one of the smallest countries in the continent of Africa, with a population of 2 million people depending on an economy that largely depend on rain-fed agriculture and tourism. Therefore, it is apparent that any climate or travel disruption will inevitably have a huge negative impact on the economy with devastating consequences on our GDP output. In addition to the climate change and its attendant impact, inadequate rainfall and poor harvest in 2019-2020 rainy season, which is now 2020 exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, thus increasing the vulnerability of our communities. This has drastically delayed most of our efforts geared towards national development and building resilience against against the adverse effects of climate change, as enshrined in our National Development Plan and Climate Change Policy. However, we are currently working on reviewing our NDC, which is one of the most ambitious NDCs among the member countries, to reflect the new realities. And we are also very far in developing our long-term strategy, which has the objective of zero carbon emission by 2050, that is, transiting to low carbon society. With this vision in mind, the Gambia's energy policy is now directed to more of renewable energy. For example, we are now implementing a 20 megawatt solar program and 10 megawatt through the NAMA facility solar program. And we are also linking 1,000 schools and over 100 health facilities for lighting and cooling system to solar energy. All this is to ensure that we transit to a low carbon economy. And also through the sub-regional OMVG project, we are also embarking on a hydropower project. With these projects, the Gambia's dependence on fossil fuel will be reduced by 50%. It is a known fact that COVID-19 pandemic has seriously reduced economic activities worldwide, and the Gambia in particular.
Minister, we can't hear you. We seem to be having technical difficulties. Let's move to the Minister of Gabon. And we will ask our colleagues from the Gambia to send us the full text of the minister's statement. Distinguished Minister of Gabon.
Thank you, Selwin, and thank you particularly to Minister Koizumi and the government of Japan for organizing today. Gabon has one of the highest testing rates for COVID infections in Africa. We've implemented strict social distancing. We've been monitoring people tested positive and contacts. And through a concerted government action, we've been able to reduce infection rate. And we've been fortunate enough, even though for us it's a tragedy, to only have 53 deaths so far. And we apply the same rigor to our fight against climate change. Despite absorbing more than 4 times as much CO2 as we emit, we are strongly committed to reducing our carbon emissions over the next 10 years. As Carlos Manuel Rodriguez said very eloquently, COVID-19 is a byproduct of the conflict between humans and nature. And so nature-based solutions are critical to fighting climate change and critical to minimizing the risks of future pandemics. We need to renew our relationship with biodiversity and with nature. We need to invest as much in our fight against climate change as we are in the fight against COVID, because climate change is a bigger threat in the medium term. Hundreds of millions of Africans are going to experience extreme suffering in coming decades if we fail to act effectively against climate change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister White. I now give the floor to the distinguished Minister of Jordan. Minister, the floor is yours. Minister of Jordan. Seems to be having technical difficulties. We'll go to Lao.
Is it my turn?
Jordan, yes, Minister. Jordan. Jordan.
Yes, please. Yes, good afternoon. I hope that you can hear me clearly, Your Excellency, Minister.
Minister, we can't hear you clearly. There seems to be some technical difficulties.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, we can, Minister. Yes, we can.
Good afternoon.
Minister, we seem to be having some technical difficulties with your connection. We'll move to the next minister, and then we'll come back to you.
Okay.
And hopefully the organizers can solve the technical problems. I now give the floor to distinguished Minister of Natural Resources and the Environment of Lao.
Mr. Chair, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to first extend my sincere congratulations and appreciation to Minister Koizumi and UNFCCC Secretariat for your joint efforts to launch this online platform on sustainable and resilient recovery from COVID-19. Fighting against COVID-19 consumes a lot of capital and disrupt our economic growth. As similar to many countries, we have to set our national priority to our people's safety. Like other signatory states of the Paris Agreement, 2020 is the milestone year for Lao PDR to submit its renewed NDC to the UNFCCC, including revised mitigation and adaptation targets. We believe that with national effort, Combined with international cooperation, we will be able to come along together to achieve our goals. The 2020 updated NDC will contribute to serve the country's post-COVID-19 economic recovery by increasing resilience and accelerating decarbonization. It brings toward enhanced action with the aim of strengthening Laos' response to the threat of climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, COVID-19 may stay long in our world, so we have to live in the new normal in our working lives. We need to promote the utilization of video conferencing more than in the past. With the difficulty of traveling, external experts may find obstacles to come over to the project countries. With this new normal, we kindly suggest a redesign that replacement of overseas experts may be important with our local expert or local staff where it's possible. Ladies and gentlemen, I end my intervention. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's now go back to the Minister of Environment of Jordan to see if the problem has been fixed.
Yes, please, I'm here. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Yes, thank you very much. Good afternoon, Excellency Minister of Environment, Japan, Secretary of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Jordan has been one of the most active countries in the Middle East in tackling climate change and supporting international response actions by adopting all treaties. It's a big year for Jordan as we have launched our National Green Growth Action Plan that covers 6 critical sectors, while the country is updating our national climate change policy to reflect latest development in the country and around the world. We have focused on developing a national-scale bankable climate actions to stimulate job growth and the critical economy with the engagement of the private sector and development partners and climate change funds. We are proactively transforming public institutions and spaces to increase our energy efficiency measures in different sectors. So this is an important aspect that we are following to reduce impact within the government buildings, different institutions, and private sectors as well. The alarming consequences of the pandemic showed the world how terrifying results might be if we are not well prepared to adapt to the global crisis, especially with the climate change impacts. We learned a valuable lesson during our recovery year in 2010 following the 2008-2009 global financial crisis, where emissions were nearly 5 times higher than usual. We now have responsibility to ensure our recovery efforts take into account the climate change impacts and do not hurt or stop progress being achieved pre-pandemic. Must ensure recovery of efforts are resilient and green. And to do so, and all countries in collaborative capacity as members around the globe provide the requested support. The proposed assistance would consist of the following climate-related tasks. First, analysis of COVID-19 impact and possible green recovery strategies and public policies. Technical support in the preparation of macroeconomic framework for the medium-term preparations. Third, assessment of the economic and social impact of COVID-19 with a focus on tourism, agriculture, health sectors and possible health sector and possible inclusion of other sectors and of economic recovery measures to be adopted by the government, including the analysis of economic impact of COVID-19 crisis in relation to national growth, employment and sustainable development, and to ensure all of those are aligned with the low emissions for sustainable development. I thank you very much, and I hope that throughout this through this gathering, we can come up with some conclusions that will help all of us to overcome the pandemic and work in a more sustainable way moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister. I now give the floor to Distinguished Minister of Environment of Luxembourg, followed by Madagascar, Malta, and Mongolia. Luxembourg.
Thank you very much. And dear colleagues, it's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. So dear colleagues, let's make sure that we are coherent with the Agenda 2030 goals. Let's make sure that we are coherent in the policies that we put in place now with the Paris Agreement and with biodiversity protection. In order to be able to use this recovery as an opportunity, as some of you already mentioned, I think it's important to not only have some green elements in, but we must contribute to structurally transform our economy into a more resilient, safer places for us, for the society, and for our children. So therefore, I really like to thank the Japanese colleague, Mr. Kozumi, and welcome the opportunity to share with you experiences, good practices. And I may add that I really like to welcome those who already spoke about international solidarity, which is absolutely needed, and confirm that Luxembourg will be part of those who will show this solidarity. We are also convinced, and in our national energy and climate plan, sustainable finance plays a key role. That's why during the crisis, we have been setting up the Sustainable Finance Initiative, a private-public partnership in order to put in place our green economy recovery, create green jobs. And I'm happy to share with you the experience that this week, Luxembourg launched its first sustainable bond framework, the first country in Europe. Beneath this, we have a very large recovery plan where we want to help people, economy, but also local authority to make that shift. That's why we are investing in building sector, in renewable energy. For us, the shift has to be nuclear free, not only decarbonizing, going away from fossil, but also nuclear free. We want to help people to make that shift as it comes to the houses, to the buildings, and we want to help also the local authorities because they are crucial if it comes to infrastructure. So let's work together. Let's listen to science and seize the opportunity now. And with this, I thank the Japanese colleague for putting in place this platform and for listening.
Thank you so much, Minister, and thank you for really stressing the need for international cooperation and solidarity. I now give the floor to the Minister of Environment of Madagascar, followed by Malta, Mongolia, Morocco, and Nicaragua.
Thank you. Your Excellency, Mr. Koizumi, Minister of the Environment of Japan, honorable delegates, on behalf of the government of the Republic of Madagascar, it's a real pleasure to have this opportunity to express my highest consideration to all of you. As an island country of the African continent, Madagascar is one of the most exposed nations to climate risks. This scourge threatens our current survival and that of our future generations. Extreme weather events claim 500,000 victims each year in our country. Our island has 350,000 to 500,000 victims per year, including 100 dead and missing of cyclonic hazards, as well as 350,000 people per year that are affected by food insecurity due to the advancing drought. Madagascar biodiversity hotspot is recovering with high resilience from COVID-19. We set 40,000 hectares of a reforestation program each year that have never been implemented before. It is a strong engagement of our government. Our government has also taken actions to respond to and recover from the COVID-19 crisis by implementing wide-ranging measures such as social support to 250,000 vulnerable families in response to COVID-19, provide support to the business community, but recovery depends on economic activities, and we need energy, clean energy. This is where we are empowering our national program on green economy and blue economy with our 5,000 kilometers of coast. We promote gender approach and environmental education, and we work with the civil society. Environmental justice, zero tolerance to endangered species traffic are the key priorities of our environmental program. Government approach is counting on the local private sector solution as well. It's a post-COVID-19 reality. What we need to be adopted. Policy, acceleration of institutional reform should be a priority post-COVID-19. How can we manage it? We need cooperation and innovation to rise our economy through a sustainability and digital approach. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Minister. And colleagues, we have just over 20 speakers left and 25 minutes left. So we really want to squeeze everyone in. I now give the floor to distinguished Minister of Malta. After 2 minutes, you will hear a bell, which signals that you've passed the 2-minute threshold.
Good afternoon, Minister Kozumi. Good afternoon, colleagues. It is my pleasure to contribute to this initiative, whereby we are sharing our expertise and our best practices too. Of course, the pandemic gave us a big blow. Our finances, but also our focus. The silver lining is the European Commission's European Green Deal, which we are using as a country, but also the fact that the people realized the need for a global recovery, a sustained way of living, and therefore moving towards the Paris Agreement. Of course, Malta is a very small country, and we have our own issues, our own challenges. For example, we have no natural resources, limited space, and low per capita emissions. Having said that, we are committed to reaching zero carbon by 2050. That's why we are finalizing our low carbon development strategy, which will be finalized by the end of this year. And this includes 7 sectors. The main sector which contributes towards our emissions is the transport sector. That's why we are incentivizing people to move to electric vehicles. And that's why we will very soon announce a cutoff date since when nobody will be allowed to import any internal combustion engines, and therefore moving fully to electric cars. We are also moving to massive investment in infrastructure to remove traffic congestion and the modal shift to less pollutant transport systems, including also assessing feasibility of a mass transport transit system. The energy sector is also very important. Energy efficiency in building strategy, installation of solar panels in buildings and solar farms will assist. A floating offshore wind farm is also being explored, and hydrogen, which is still in its infancy. Finally, in the waste management sector, a waste-to-energy facility, new organic waste processing plant, and a beverage container refund scheme, together with the hospitality sector, which is very important for Malta, and a eco-certification scheme, which will be up and running very soon. That's all from my end. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister. I now give the floor to distinguished Minister of Environment and Tourism of Mongolia. Minister from Mongolia. We seem to be having technical issues. Let's go to the Minister of Energy and Mines and Environment of Morocco.
Thank you very much, dear Minister, dear participant, dear colleague. I would like to thank the government. It's okay?
Morocco, please.
Can I speak?
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much.
Morocco,
Dear
please.
Minister, dear participant, dear colleague, I would like to thank the government of Japan for this initiative, as we need to cooperate more to achieve the redesign process goals and to better implement the climate environment plan and COVID recovery program. But allow me to say that the redesign process must be undertaken at three levels: international, regional, and national. And we need to have a solid link between all of them based on new international cooperation and partnership system. Unfortunately, when we see that there is a less commitment of more advanced countries to implement COP21 Paris Agreement and COP22 Marrakesh Action Plan and other COP, when we see divergence and conflicts between them, there's advanced countries in the COVID situation, no unified effort to find vaccine, we stay convinced that the advanced countries are only conducted by the market and business policy and the local interest. Excuse my frank speech. The developing countries like Morocco are committed to face climate change and COVID impact. We are redesigning the whole development model, redefining all the sectoral plan and program, clean energy, including hydrogen, industry, agriculture, education, health, mobility, water, territory development. We are committed to bring our support to all international, regional, and African initiatives for sustainable development, biodiversity, energy access, social development, agriculture, and so on. This dynamism will help us to handle immediate impact of the crisis and also to build resilient system to fight against future shock. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister. And I now give the floor to distinguished Minister of Nicaragua, a very good friend, Paul. Always a pleasure to see you.
Thank you very much, Selwin. I wish to examine now how to save the climate change negotiations from COVID-19 and related crises. There are two keys. One is an increased level of ambition in worldwide greenhouse gas emissions by the largest emitters, and two is access to climate finance for developing countries. A trade-off is also necessary on the continuation of developed country carbon markets for the eventually inevitable recognition of climate change losses and damages as a co-equal category with mitigation and adaptation as demanded by developing countries. Given the time limitation of 2 minutes, I will address only the theme of ambition, leaving the equally important issue of finance for another occasion. The world now faces simultaneously the consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic, the long lockdowns, the Great Depression 2020, extreme inequality, and the initiation of the Second Cold War. During the Great Depression that began in 1929, then U.S. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt famously pronounced, "All we have to fear is fear itself." In 2020, fear has gone viral, and confidence in the future has turned into despair. One way to regain confidence in the future and hope is to adopt the IPCC's 1.5 centigrade degree objective of a net zero emission society by 2050, officially in COP26 in Glasgow. That would put us on track to avoid the worst consequences of global warming. For this, the United Kingdom and England need to achieve the commitment from the 10 countries with the highest emissions that account for 72% of the total. The 100 countries with the least emissions only contribute 3%. If the zero net emission society is not the first priority for recovery, then it will not sail. Instead, it will sink in a sea of competing priorities. If we are serious about 2050 and the zero net emission society, it must become a #1 priority. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Paul. And I thank you for your very concrete proposal around adopting a net zero target at COP 26. And as you know, in the statement of the Secretary General earlier, he did call on all countries really to use this as the guide for increasing their ambition around their NDCs. But thank you so much. We will try again, distinguished Minister of Mongolia, to see if the connection issues have been addressed. Minister of Environment of Mongolia.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to express my great appreciation to Your Excellency, Mr. Koizumi Shinjiro, Minister of Environment of Japan, for your initiative and also for holding this important virtual ministerial level meeting on nexus of human health and climate change. Mongolia has taken comprehensive actions during this period, including the prioritization of the health sector, protecting job places, and supporting the household livelihood. Furthermore, the government action plan has been approved last Friday with key directions leading to support economic development and environment-friendly, globally committed actions. The necessary concrete assessments and planning is also developed to implement the action plan with the national resource and capacity, in addition with international cooperation support. For Mongolia, all types of pollution, water, air, and soil are emerging challenges. Last year, first time in 20 years, Mongolia has successfully reduced air pollution by 50% through shifting the processed coal consumption within the capital city while banning the raw coal consumption. For the next 4 years, an ambitious target has been stated to reduce the air pollution up to 80%. Air quality monitoring is functioning regularly through cooperation and support of Japan, USA, and others, and highly welcomed by the public. Energy sector is a key contributor with 50% share for national greenhouse gas emission. In order to minimize its coal consumption while targeting to provide sustainable energy supply, the feasibility studies and environmental impact assessments has started based on the government objective to establish sub-region-based hydropower stations and internal drainages. It's expected to contribute to the commitment of reduction of greenhouse gas emission by 22.7% towards Paris Agreement, even though Mongolia holds 0.1% of global level emission. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Minister. I now give the floor to the Minister from Palestine, then Peru, Poland, and then Spain. Palestine.
Greetings from State of Palestine, and many thanks for the Japanese government for this initiative, which comes in a timely of these difficult days of unprecedented challenges that needs unprecedented, innovative, and creative solutions. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the State of Palestine and Palestinian people are suffering from the severe implications of climate change that have severe consequences on economy and livelihoods. In recognition of these challenges, Palestine was among first 15 countries who signed and ratified agreements, and the first country in MENA region to do so with personal participation of our President Mahmoud Abbas. To overcome these climate change vulnerabilities, combating climate change and achieving its national development and policy objectives, the State of Palestine, and in conformity with Paris Agreement, submitted its ambitious NDC that covers 12 adaptation and 10 mitigation sectors with an estimated cost of $14 billion, and started mobilizing huge efforts to implement its NDC. However, in the midst of transforming its plans into concrete actions, the State of Palestine has faced sudden breakout of COVID-19 pandemic, which have severe impact on the ability of implementing its NDC as a result of imposing necessary procedures to contain the pandemic. This includes announcing the state of emergency since March 2020 lockdown and the application of social distancing measures. The Palestinian economy is already facing significant developmental challenges and is being exacerbated due to COVID-19. Being under occupation and with continuous Israeli violations to international laws, agreements, and human rights. This led to disruptions in the state of Palestine's efforts to combat climate change and efficiently respond to the pandemic challenges. For the state of Palestine to resume its efforts, achieve its commitment to climate action, and enhance its NDC implementation, it is essential that the country increases capability of fulfilling its commitments and delivering its mandate efficiently by receiving appropriate support with regard to finance, technology transfer, and capacity building. This will contribute to the state of Palestine in continuing to meet its commitments to climate change, improving its access to climate finance, while at the same time taking into account the impact of health crisis on climate change activities and health co-benefits on the long term. Finally, no one should be left behind in these difficult times is the only way to pass these immense challenges with minimum losses. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I now give the floor to Distinguished Minister of Peru.
Watashi wa kirlai chegarai. Yoroshiku onegai shimasu. Dear Executive Secretary, distinguished ministers, ladies and gentlemen, COVID-19 marks a before and after for humanity. However, climate change remains the greatest challenge we face. In this context, climate action and nature-based solutions represent an opportunity to mainstream sustainability in the process of economic recovery. For this reason, we need to continue pursuing climate ambition as our main goal for crafting a green economy recovery. Based on this premise, we will submit our new NDCs with greater ambition and sense of urgency, but in adaptation and mitigation. Also, we will present Peru's technical proposal for carbon neutrality by 2050 and Peru's national adaptation plan, which will be the building blocks of our new national climate change strategy by 2050. In Peru, we firmly believe in a transition for the carbonized future. Therefore, we have launched our carbon footprint platform, which recognizes the effort of public and private organizations to account and reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. The online platform for sustainable and resilient recovery for COVID-19 gives our country the opportunity to participate and exchange lessons learned in environmental policies and actions that are implemented in the context of recovery from COVID-19. Finally, Peru wishes to congratulate the Japanese government for this initiative that will allow us to share the action we have been implementing for a green, low carbon and climate resilient development, where each small effort counts to make change so that no one is left behind. Thank you so much. Arigato gozaimashita.
Thank you so much, Minister, as well as for clearly outlining Peru's plans to achieve carbon neutrality. I now give the floor to the Distinguished Minister of Poland, followed by Spain. Poland? If we don't have Poland on the line, we can go to Minister Rivera from Spain. Teresa? Do we have Spain or Poland?
Okay, so apologies. I was talking, but nobody could hear me. I was saying that congratulations to the Japanese government for this initiative. To be very short and bold on the messages, I would start by stating two general messages. The first of them being, I agree with you all that we need to take advantage of the synergies between the different agendas. The recovery agenda, in our case, but in many cases, is green, digital, cohesion, and equity. So something that matches very well with the climate agenda. And the second general message is that in this strange year, it is time to accelerate action, but it is also time to improve coordination. So the type of approach that is behind this initiative. Dealing with the domestic agenda, I would stress some ideas. The first of them being that we've got the Climate Change and Energy Transition Act already in the Parliament, endorsing ambitious goals, including climate neutrality by 2050, and introducing a 100% renewable energy system and different tools in order to facilitate a clear coherence between the different policies and the assessment of climate risk to the economy, society, and ecosystems. We want to improve the response to the COVID to using to a large extent the integrated energy and climate plan, so working on energy, mobility, urban agenda, etc. The development of the just transition strategy, including all the different agreements in the 15 most vulnerable regions of the world, of the Spanish reality, is quite an important step forward, including the energy poverty plan. Finally, stressing the national adaptation plan, so the economic, social resilience to climate impacts and the green nature-based solutions in order to invest in climate resilience and using a set of indicators that could allow us to understand the effectiveness of our action. I could add the strategy for circular economy with concrete targets both in reducing the resources consumption and the waste generation, starting with the retail and garment sector, the building sector, the agribusiness, and the tourist sector. So thanks a lot, and I hope we can still work even in this strange manner. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister, and thank you for your very strong leadership in your country, but also within the European Union as well. I think we have the Minister of Poland who's connecting. Minister?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Minister.
Yes, thank you very much. So let's imagine a different world and let's redesign it as rightly proposes Minister Koizumi, taking into account the sustainability and climate imperative. And in Poland, we put in place the first green investment plan after COVID-19. And renewable energy is booming despite the pandemic. Bloomberg recognized Poland as Europe's hottest renewable market, with 65% growth of installed capacity till 2024. Within 10 years, 1 in every 3 units of produced electricity will be zero emission. And within 20 years, a completely new zero emission energy system of the size of existing conventional system will be put in place. Also, public transport is electrifying, and Poland is the first producer of electric buses in Europe. Heating is being transformed, very important in our situation. Out of 3 million of individual houses to be renovated in the last 18 months, as much as 200,000 houses went through it. But all this we cannot do alone. We need to collaborate, develop together new technologies, scale up innovations, secure access to markets and resources, provide financing. COVID-19 is a human, economic, and societal trauma. I went through it. I can testify that left confronted with this illness, every human person feels frightened and alone. And I think the same applies to nations. But the time comes when we need to stop feeling alone. It's time to reunite our forces, reopen frontiers, maybe not yet entirely physical ones, but at least ones constraining our imagination. With Katowice rulebook, the crowning achievement of the COP24 in Katowice, we did it. We reinvented Paris Agreement. Now it's time to reinvent or should I say redesign the way we develop? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister, for your leadership and for your very clear vision.